Hello, world. This is Hello Chaos, the podcast about the ups and downs of entrepreneurship. I am Jennifer Oladipo, aka Jenno.
And I am Jennifer Sutton, aka, I guess, just Jen. I have no nickname. Sorry, guest. And today, so excited to have on our show David Dewane of Mouse Books. David, welcome. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
Coming on board.
Pleasure to be here.
Yeah. So, David, start us off. Just give us the 30,000 foot, your little elevator speech of your entrepreneur journey and Mouse Books.
Yeah, absolutely. So Mouse Books to me came as a kind of a chain of observations. One day I was riding on a bus in Chicago, where I live, and a whole bunch of people were just sitting on the bus like this, like reading their phones, a whole bus full of them. And I happened to be reading like a regular book, like a physical book, like this, And I was thinking about it, and it occurred to me that it's remarkable that as a species, we've essentially trained ourselves to read constantly. And then the second thought was, what are these people actually reading? They're reading scrolling social media or on like online journalism, which is fairly repetitive. And so I was reading a classic. I happened to be reading the Communist Manifesto by Karl Marx, actually, because I was writing a manifesto work about something else, totally different. And but nevertheless, it's a great text. And I'm just as capitalist as the next guy, which is why I'm on an entrepreneurship show. However, it was a Bantam Pocket Classic, and in the back of it, it said, if you like this book, you'll like Aeschylus and Montaigne and Mark Twain. And I'm looking around again and thinking, nobody's ever going to read Mark Twain or Kafka like on their phone. And that is bizarre because it's like so much better than what they're actually reading. And so I carry around these little pocket notebooks. They're like passport size. And I was holding this in one hand and the book in the other hand. And I'm like, well, wait a second. If you could just make the book, like take a physical book and make it the size of a cell phone, then maybe people would carry around like Ida B. Wells as like a pocket form, and so like you have a great text literally on your body at all times, so that if you're ever bored, this is probably this company, I will say, was founded at a time where people were moving around a lot more, but we're kind of going back in that direction again, so maybe that'll be interesting. And so if you get that impulse, instead of reaching out into your pocket and putting on your phone, which is kind of like a mental pacifier,
right?
You could reach into your other pocket and take out a physical book and read something that could like profoundly change your life.
I have to say, so I have actually gotten some of the books, and they're series, right, David? So there's like a theme for each series of books, and they have like a cute little like bookcase and everything. I mean, like clearly a design mind, or design minds, I guess, were forward on this. And I got the one.
Yeah, here, look at this. Here, I got just. Look at these.
Yeah, I got that.
It's like a little box set of these guys.
So
what's so
like
cool?
A series on African American literature.
Okay.
So it's like Frederick Douglass,
and like, so
Ida B.
you
Wells.
Pop one out and you take it around with you.
And it's, I mean,
I would
the
have
idea is that they're bite-sized pieces and they chain together to be larger conversations. And so a lot of the themes we do tend to be around other things. We did during COVID, we did a theme on solitude. That was really interesting. And then we did another, like our most recent theme was on the concept of normal, which is like returning to this state of like normal.
Yeah.
And so there were, 3 books in that series, and we play around with those ideas.
There's also On Bullshit. That's the other one I have besides the...
I need that. I need the normal and the bullshit one.
It's so funny, yeah. The Confidence Man was my favorite one in there.
But I love it. You speak my language of the...
Confidence Man's amazing.
Yeah.
The which one?
It's essay, Herman Melville. And...
It's by Herman Melville. It's about
or not an essay, a short story
written about a group of people going down a steamer in the Mississippi River, and the devil is on board, and he keeps transforming into different people, and it's like a really early proto-postmodern text, actually. But I was thinking about that recently when people are like, you were thinking about sending people to Mars. It'd be really interesting to do like a revised version of that story where like the devil is on the ship going to Mars. And he's like, like transforming into these different astronauts or whatever. Anyway, but like that's fun, like that text was written. It was about there's a lot of really, really great literature that just exists in the culture and now we're just in this moment where the production of new content is just like spiraling out of control.
Yeah.
And there's a huge ethic within Mouse as a company that's like essentially like a protest against forgetting these wonderful things that we already have access to, but nobody seems to care about anymore.
Yeah, but I also think you're kind of playing into because of the phone and cellular and all this, everything in this mobile, I can get everything at my fingertips. The attention span of people have. I mean, there's a stat that's like, our kids, the teenagers now, they can't even listen to a full song anymore. Like, when we listen to 4 and 5 minutes,
or much less like a record.
Yeah, or like a record.
Yeah.
They can't listen to a song more than like 60 seconds.
Oh my god.
30. So they're just listening to bite-sized clips of even just like great classical music, much less, a classic
Sitting
book.
down and reading,
right?
Literature.
And you speak my language, David, just because I'm a big reader as well. I'm a tactile person. I mean, I still subscribe to magazines and. My husband's like, are we ever gonna, can't you get this on your phone? I was like, no, it's not. To me, it's not digestible. It's not consumable because it's an experience for me. And luckily, my kids, I've got 4 kids. They're 10 to 21. 2 of my kids are tactile readers. They do not like reading on their phone. They don't like reading on tablets. They like, reading books. So our household agreement is if we go to Barnes and Nobles or whatever bookstore, Independence or what have you, if there's I call it a kid book or a fun book you have to also find a classic to read.
Oh, wait a second now. These can be fun too.
It's like you got to read both of them.
Yeah.
I know. Okay. We should jump into the business stuff, but I want to talk I have to say one last thing about the cultural piece on this.
Yeah.
Is that if you look at a book like Brothers Karamazov by Dostoevsky, that book was like 600 pages or something, the original one. It's like massive brick book.
Yeah.
And at this stage in the game, for a lot of people that live in, America right now, that's like a non-starter. They don't have the attention span anymore. But if you think about the way that Dostoevsky was operating in his day, that was like the entire, multi-season Game of Thrones. It would probably take you as long to watch every single Game of Thrones episode as it would be to read Brothers Karamazov. And so you just have to make that kind of dedication if you're going to do something like that nowadays. But what we've done is that we're just sampling bits out of that. So we took like one scene out of the Brothers Karamazov, which is like actually going back to the time Dostoevsky was published independently, I think, which is just the Grand Inquisitor scene. And so it's like we snipped it out and just presented it. And like in the normal series, we put a portion of Plato's Republic. And like, again, that's not a book that people are going to read, but we can excerpt it.
Right.
So that you don't have to be terrified by reading like the very, very long Republic by Plato.
But you're right. But it's getting people to consume these works that would otherwise be lost.
And it's just exposure to ideas that have shaped our society.
That's right.
And maybe it's not, we don't know the origins of those things anymore because we don't talk about them, or entirely new ideas depending on who you are. And that's what I love about what you're doing. It's just like, here's just get a taste, of something and so maybe dive in all the way.
So you founded this company, and how long ago was that, David? When did you
Okay, so a couple of years ago, maybe 4 years ago or something, 5 years ago, the impulse, everything came together really quickly. And I worked on one kind of entrepreneurship project before that, and I learned a lot. It was more of like a services company. And that was what was fun about this company, is that it was a product that was very easy. And I had a graphic designer that I had worked with in the past. And so I think she was the first person I called. Like I had the idea sitting on the bus, and I jumped off, and I was able to make an MVP. Like I ran to work, and I sat down. Like I opened a Adobe InDesign file, and I copy and pasted Stephen Crane's short story, The Blue Hotel, which I liked a lot. And I thought would be fit, and I just like adjusted the font size and the kerning till everything fit really nicely. And like and I just sent it to the printer and stapled it and folded it up, and boom, I had my MVP within like 45 minutes. And I showed it to the guy sitting next to me. And he looked at it, thought about it for a second, and then it's just bang, I got it. Love it,
Yeah.
And so,
and just, I'm sorry, let me pause just for
that morning.
Your MVP, that's your minimum viable product.
Yep, exactly. Like the most, and within the whole lean startup methodology, what you want to do is to spend as little money as possible getting to a form of your product that's validated you want to get to validated learning. So you create like as simple and rough a version as you possibly can, put it into somebody's hands and see if they actually like it, and then if they're willing to pay for it.
That's right.
And then try to complete that cycle as fast as you can with as little money as you can, and then adjust to make the customer happier, and and repeat the cycle again and again and again until you feel like you're getting traction.
Right.
I called, but in terms of like team building, like this was a pretty simple company. So I needed an editor. I happen to know a good editor. I called him, and he said he would be willing to work on this as a co-founder. My graphic designer I got on the first day. And then there were a couple of other people early on that were, that I think had like a little bit divergent sort of vision where this is going, like kind of value system and stuff. And so there were a couple of other partners that were there earlier and then departed relatively early. And then I got one other business partner who came in. So there were like four of us. For the vast majority of this company, it's been like these four people. And so we launched. So this is an interesting story in the kind of the germs of the getting this thing off the ground. Is that I'd read a story about another entrepreneur who had made little books. Like the company, I'll just give a shout out. The company that I carry on the little passport sized notebooks. It's called Field Notes. It's done by a guy named Aaron Draplin, and
we're fans.
What's that?
We're fans.
What's that? What'd you say?
We like Field Notes.
We like Field Notes. Yeah.
And then Kudel. So ours are exactly the same size as Field Notes, and actually we got them printed at the same printer as Field Notes for the longest time. And I pitched this idea to Field Notes like right early on, like when I thought about it, and they're like, no, we're printing money doing whatever we're doing now. So anyway, Aaron Draplin, when he started Field Notes, he made 100 of them and sent them around as Christmas presents. And so I did the same thing. I did 100 copies of Bartleby, and then I sent them around to like my friends as Christmas presents. But I didn't tell them. I think Draplin was very upfront about it. I didn't tell them that I made them. I sent them out anonymously as a kind of a test to see if I could get some validated learning from an audience. Just as like, and they're like, and a lot of people said like, wow, well, thank you for giving me this. This is really interesting. But I can't find any information about this company. Where did you get this? And
that's awesome. They went looking.
Surprise! I made it. Yeah, a bunch of people went looking for it. And so then those people became like the basis of like the first 100 people I emailed when I did a Kickstarter campaign to get some money. So that's what's nice about Kickstarter. If you have a good idea, especially for a product, you can take it to a crowdfunding platform like that, just based on the idea of having like a prototype and a little bit of validation around the idea. And then we launched it, and the first Kickstarter was pretty successful. I think it made like 50 grand or so, and got us our first 1,000 people, and we sold it through subscription. And we launched it, and it was a lot of fun. Like, I mean, it was a ton of work, and I was doing a lot of this out of my apartment. I've shipped like now I don't know, 10,000 individual packages to like through the U.S. Postal Service. Yeah, because fulfillment houses are actually really expensive for like startups.
Oh, okay.
And so it was very, very tedious. But nevertheless, it was super fun. And throughout everything up till COVID, I would say we were sort of like laddering up, and we kind of got into a nice rhythm of having that little kind of subscription pool of people that were moving along with us, and then having special projects that we sprinkle in periodically to have fun with and invigorate the project. And slowly we built out a e-commerce platform. Like, we don't have a brick and mortar store or anything like that.
Right.
My partners are all distributed around the country. One was in Washington, D.C. Now he moved to Salt Lake City. The other one's in Atlanta, and then another one is in Austin, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And I was here in Chicago, and all the books were in Chicago, and all the books were getting shipped out of Chicago. And so yeah, that's kind of the germs or the kind of backstory on the project.
So you mentioned that you're at an interesting point now in the company.
Totally. Yeah. So this has always been a side hustle, and so far we've shipped about 100,000 books.
Wow.
And so two things occurred that are really wrecking my sort of mojo on this project. I'm just gonna be honest with you.
Yeah, please.
Like, if my customers are listening to me, they'll be like, "This is why you're not returning my emails." One is that we started at 0 and got up to like that first growth plateau, like pretty easily. Everything was kind of going good. I think that it seemed like once we hit COVID, something really occurred where it was like we started noticing more attrition in our subscribers. It might have been, I mean, I can't say for sure that wasn't due to like bad customer service or like a little bit of gaps in terms of like when we were sending stuff out, but we had or maybe like some misdirected energy. We put a lot of there was a kind of core like, look, if I didn't care about the reader experience and all I cared about was selling books, I think I could have raised some like venture capital or something, given away a bunch of stock from this company, done a scrape of like public domain literature to find the most marketable, 50 books.
Yeah.
Put a ton of energy into Facebook and Instagram marketing, and probably sold a lot of books.
Yeah.
Now, the thing that was not interesting about that to me, I mean, like, this isn't my main line, and like, I'm not paying bills and feeding my kids with this. Like, this is a very much a passion-driven project for me, and the thing I care about the most is kind of changing the reading experience and making these books relevant to people.
Right.
And what I really want is for people not just to get the book, but to read the book and understand the book, apply some of the lessons from the book to their life. And maybe this is like the fatal error in the company that I'm just like asking too much. But I started noticing this trend amongst people that I knew that like bought these books where they would get a lot of them and they would just kind of pile up and they wouldn't be getting read, That was really bothering me. And so like, I'm thinking about this, like, I'm not that interested in just selling people books they're not going to read. And so I have had a little bit of angst about that, and I think there are a couple pivots we could take. I haven't figured out the riddle on that. One thing that we did do is we just paused the subscription thing because, again, I mean, these things are coming down like a treadmill,
right?
Or like an assembly line. It's like Laverne and Shirley, and they're like, like stacking up, and like, it's like, okay, if you can't keep pace with these things, maybe another version of this would be to look at like the high school market or something like people who have to read anyway.
Yeah.
Like, it's assigned to them.
Right.
And do a version of it where, we're basically taking something like this and replacing like the English textbook, where instead of having all these like bound in like a big $100 textbook, you can break the text apart into like a way that they're like manageable to read, but like you can also carry them around.
Yeah.
And then have a digital component where there's a QR code that you can scan. And we did this with like one series where there was a QR code, you scan it, it goes right to the like an interview with each book with like a great scholar,
Oh, wow.
which is like a super awesome aspect of the company that we like built out. But just like, again, it wasn't seem like it was getting traction. So I know that there was a question that you prepped me. If there was one thing I would do differently, is that I would absolutely, from day one, found a marketing partner. We never found a really, really good person that either had like innate keen sense for positioning, or somebody after the fact who could just come in and like figure out like what marketing was, how it worked, what the purpose was, where it was appropriate for this company. And I could only read like so many Seth Godin books before I was just like, I can't even apply all this good information. Right. I just need somebody in that role.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if anybody's listening and they want like a 1/5 partnership in a company and you're a marketer, call me. That's kind of where I'm at right now on that.
Yeah, but that's real though, because you've got, everyone can't tell their story. I mean, it's hard to
and develop that brand.
Yeah.
I mean, it is, as we talk to lawyers and other people from the outside to go, how valuable that brand and the positioning is.
Yeah. So when did you figure that out? When did you?
Was that like recently?
How far did you get before you really were like, this is a key?
I would say it was like throughout COVID, like piece by piece, things kind of started coming together. I also changed jobs, and as the kind of like maybe the company was a little bit too over dependent on me, and when a lot of my attention suddenly evaporated, then things kind of started to stagnate, and so that's been really painful. I mean, there's only so many hours in the day.
That's right.
And like I think the lack of time combined with the sort of existential questions around like, how is this really a benefit? And like, honestly, like I said, like we hit that kind of growth where it wasn't totally sustainable. We're getting a lot of stuff out there, but it wasn't like this is a company that was making a lot of money and like we could hire people and
right.
It could really take off. The lack of liftoff was problematic, So like it was problematic to running the company in the same way, which is why I think this is an interesting conversation rather than just like a kind of a dead end conversation.
Yeah.
It's because now I think we're at like a central decision point where we have to think about, we have, I think, a great brand asset. We have demonstrated the ability to sell these things when people know about them,
right?
And I think that we have something kind of magical where there have been moments in this company, or just as like from the consumer side, like I can point to a handful of them. We did a series on giving for Christmas one year, and like one of the stories that we featured in there was The Happy Prince by Oscar Wilde. And as soon as I got to the end of that story, I just closed the book and whispered like, wow, like it was insane. There have been a couple of other moments like probably, I don't like definitely there was a book that we did of Socrates, one of his dialogues, and again, like he is a person you hear about all the time, and you kind of have general understanding just by like being a cognizant person of different historical characters and philosophers and stuff. But then when you sit down and read a Socratic dialogue, suddenly the character of Socrates like reveals himself to you in all of its splendor. And you're like, holy shit, it's like staring at the sun, and so like that was remarkable. And there was like a dozen of those. And so it's like, it's really compelling for me to think about how I can get those wow moments for other people in a way that, gets the books off the shelves and read and distributed.
Right.
You know?
How's the dynamic with the other partners, your other team? Are they feeling that same kind of existential crisis that you're feeling, or are they just
No, they're all
reacting
totally
to
on
you?
board.
Okay.
The weirdest thing in the world. When I was totally gangbusters on this, my editor was actually trying to quit a bunch of times. Like, he probably tried to quit like 10 times. And I just kept telling him, no, you can't quit. You can't quit. And my my graphic designer's always been totally on the ball. Everybody else has been on the ball. Or like maybe has like in the past has maybe struggled here or there, but now it's like everybody's kind of aligned, and I'm the one that's not on the ball. So I don't know what to do about that. Like, it's a problem that I've got to really, like, I have to be able to dig back into this project in a way where I feel confident again. And I mean, just to be kind of like, vulnerable about it, I guess, like, it gives me anxiety to think about this project right now because, like, I don't know what the next move is. I know there are a lot of people that care about it. I care about it, but I'm not willing to. I don't want it to become just a zombie company that just moves along, kind of, doing the same thing again and again and again, and because I do believe that the idea has some real traction, and I can't underscore enough, like, how much I think the context of COVID has really kind of changed this a little. And it, like, the whole thing it was kind of like a mobilizing literature sort of thing, and then suddenly, like, nobody was moving anymore.
Yeah.
So to clarify, like,
going back to that.
So it's like people aren't, you conceive this thing on public transit, and like that whole culture has shifted, and you're trying to figure out where.
Yeah, we designed it literally like that.
Yeah.
We designed the books to be like able to be read by like somebody sitting across the bus from you.
Yeah.
And like I got like really interesting testimonials from people that like, hey, do you think you could send me another copy of that Booker T. Washington book? I was sitting on the bus and somebody asked me about it, and I gave it to them.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's your mission.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
that's your mission, right?
That's it.
Yeah.
And
so,
like, there was a cool idea we had in this company where we would like put in the book that like, if you ever give this to somebody else, we'll just replace it for free, like, indefinitely. I think it would have been a really good marketing idea, but
still is.
So
we're a little nervous about that.
Well, who was it? Like Patagonia that'll take stuff for like ever. Like, you could bring back something. Is it Patagonia? Let me not misquote.
Yeah, like a lifetime guarantee. Like a lot of camping companies have these like.
They'll take back anything in any shape at any point. But this thing that you're wrestling with is real and not uncommon. So like, where are you finding your answers, or where are you looking for the answers? Is it a matter of like just sitting down? Do you have other entrepreneurs that you can, talk with about this kind of thing?
I've talked about this with my leadership coach. I've talked about this with my main mentor. I've talked about this with all four of my partners, and all three of my partners. I've talked about it with my wife, and like I just, and I like to a degree I've talked about it with some of our customers, and I haven't got a good answer yet. I think it's coming. I feel like it's some kind of a. I mean, I don't think it's coming from like outer space or anything like that. But like, I think
this is a soul searching, right? I mean,
I'll toggle through and figure something out.
What's the advice that you're getting?
But take a break. Pause it, or kind of recharge. Take a step back. Just do a little. Like. There's a sense of overwhelm that I'm sure you could probably sense, and that it's not this is not some massive monster, like lower your expectations about what the next step looks like, and maybe deliver less, don't try to kind of do an enormous amount of work, just do a little bit. I think honestly, I think what would be a really cool pilot, what I would love to do, is to find a really inspired English teacher at a high school somewhere and see if they could take, like this, like 12 books on, this is like African American literature from the earliest stuff that we've got up through the dawn of the Harlem Renaissance. Really incredible collection. And I think we did this right, we put this together initially right after the George Floyd murder as a way of just giving people kind of background on like where all this pain is coming from. And there's a lot of pain. I'll tell you what, in this box set, there is like a tremendous amount of pain. And I think to give like a group of high schoolers like access to that in a way where you're getting direct contact with the sources would be pretty interesting. And then, one of the things that we've still got to follow through on in this is going out and collecting like a kind of a series of interviews like this, like scholarly interviews. And we've done like 50 of these. They've been really, really wonderful. And I'll tell you, it's like the easiest thing in the world to get somebody who's like a scholar on, I'm just going to randomly pick out Harriet Jacobs, to get somebody a scholar on Harriet Jacobs or Franz Kafka or, Socrates to sit down and talk with you. Because that's their whole job. To talk about these guys. And they're usually so energetic and so animated that they've written books about these people and all they want to do is talk about these people. And so we've gotten really, really, really wonderful interviews that are directly tied to these texts that allow you to sort of like just unfold the text in like an audio way, like a podcast kind of way like this. And man, I know this is like sounds like this is like a transition from like a very useful show for you guys.
This is the show, David. This is the whole like I am like so thrilled right now that you're sharing this stuff with us because we're trying to normalize these kinds of conversations. Like these kinds of struggles are real and people don't talk about it because we feel like
this gets in this is the journey for a lot of folks. So
no, this is a super useful conversation. I will probably hear more about this.
One question I would like to know the answer to is whether or not like all of that money or all that time we invested in terms of like building a digital kind of mirror to these things is like a waste of time. Or if it's just not there yet, like we haven't gone around enough Jim Collins flywheels to really like build up momentum to really sense whether or not that connection is like magical. Okay. This is like exactly how I feel. This is probably the ultimate entrepreneurial feeling is being like Clark Griswold in Christmas Vacation. And he puts all the lights all over the house, and he sits there plugging it in and like nothing happens, he's plugging it in and then you see it once and then it goes out again and you can't figure out why, and like you never I just feel like that's kind of where I'm at right now. And like but I had there's enough really positive foundational material and like I have gotten really great like testimonials from certain customers of ours. I remember this woman in Maine who sent me this awesome note one time about how, her 14-year-old daughter comes into the room and she's like, "What are those?" And your mom's like, "These are books." And she's like, "Why didn't you just get a Kindle and get every book?" And she's like, she laughs at her all like in the snarky way. And then the mom like leaves the room and does some stuff and she comes back in like 45 minutes later and the girl is like curled up in a chair with one of the books. And she's like deeply into this book.
And
the mom just wrote me a letter and she's like, "Thank you." Like I don't know like what it takes to get my daughter to read, but this worked.
Wow.
And like there are like a bunch of those. There's also like one of the things that I disliked about the company the whole time is the kind of like Pokemon feeling, or they gotta collect them all, and like the collector culture generally. And
Yeah.
I have to admit, I am a extreme field notes collector.
Yeah.
Like I was part of the Facebook field notes collector group.
So what's wrong with collecting?
I had to cut myself off cold turkey. It seemed antithetical to like the books were meant to kind of be read, not like collected in a way.
Man, but that's readers though. That's
what
readers
do.
Like Jennifer and I, we both like. I hardly know anybody who like subscribes to magazines like that and like has magazines.
But I have them. Like I have decades old magazines.
It's like so hard to. I'm a bit of a purger, and I can't.
But also the readers too.
I mean, that's your people. That's who you're.
They don't give. I mean, unless you truly have to purge your bookshelf because there's no more room.
Right. You're going to move or something.
That's right. I think that's part of the reading culture. But but your point of your mission is you want people to consume and to digest. So maybe the playing up of give this to somebody once you've read it and consumed it, pass it along, share it. Because what I'm hearing from you, it's like you want a movement.
And it gives you that permission to like.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, there was something really radical about like that idea, where it was. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this, but like during the Great Depression, somewhere in Austria, there was this guy who started an experiment, like a small town mayor, printed his own money, but like the trick was that like the money expired after 30 days. Once you had it, so you'd get it, they'd stamp it, and then it was like a running clock, so you had to spend it so nobody could like save or hoard money. And so what they ended up seeing was that there was like this enormous explosion of movement of money through the economy. Like the dollar would move like 30 times more often than it would in like a normal economy. And I feel like something like that. I don't know. And maybe I'm wrong. I mean, there's a very good chance I'm wrong about the whole collector thing, and that those are your base people, and you should, make sure they're taken care of. And I'm sure that there's something to that. But like, on the notebook side, like on the field note side, there was a part of the collector culture where like these people were like investing in these notebooks, waiting for them to rise in price and then sell them again. And I'm like, wow, why don't you just use it? Like, just write in it,
right?
Just enjoy it, rather than treat it as like
a Beanie Baby or something.
That's funny.
I don't know about that, but we've got some cool ideas for projects. Can I run a couple cool ideas by you?
Yeah. You want to workshop?
That's right.
We can workshop.
That's right. We're workshopping.
What you got? By the way, I don't know if you were aware, but Jennifer, I mean, she's a brand builder here and a marketing. That's the first company that is still existing, and this is a sister company. So
that's right.
Bring it.
So you are talking to a marketer.
Yeah. What you got?
Okay. Well,
now he's like, now I'm not going to share it.
One thing that's not no, please. And if somebody can do this better than me, just steal the idea and make it really amazing. The one thing that we want to do next is put out a collection on the lost generation, which are all of the Americans who went to Europe, like Hemingway and Fitzgerald. And they formed a kind of collective of writers.
That's right.
Richard Stein and all these people. And so we're going to publish a box set around all those different guys, or all those different like men and women who we're building a kind of a collective conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one idea, like kind of a summer reading thing.
I love that. I'm just going to tell you right now, that is only because those are some of my favorite writers. Those are the books I tend to collect.
Oh, okay.
So that would interest me. But also those are well known enough, and they have kind of those writers have a mystique about them.
Yeah, and there is that FOMO thing. That was the first thing I thought of. Like, it's like, oh, like I feel like I should know more about these people, and like having them together in that way.
And like and like you said, it's there is a romance about how, and you only get a glimpse of, wow, they were all in Paris and Europe and stuff, and they traveled around together.
It was a short amount of time.
In a very short amount of time, and they all kind of gauged each other's writing and were mentors to each other.
Yeah, so we were gonna package this under the kind of concept of summer reading, where you could read through these books over the summer, and then we'll drop a couple podcasts like this, like where you can hear the backstory on who these people were and what their role in that is. So yeah, and like it's a FOMO thing. That would just like I'm sure if you were interested in having that gap in your head filled, you could fill it.
Cool.
The second one is like these are going to scale up in terms of strangeness, or maybe capacity it would take. There was one series that we were going to do. There was a year-long series of a book a week on the concept of wisdom. Okay, so like 52 books that would come in like 4 boxes like this, and so there were one for each season. And like what's really great is that like when the my editor, he's edited the whole thing already. Like we have them, we could print them tomorrow.
You know?
Wow, okay.
And we were trying to figure out how to present them. Should we present them by theme? Should we present them by like chronology? Should we do like whatever? And then I just like hit randomize, and it was like insane. Like to hit like I think the first one was like Metamorphosis by Ovid. The second one was like W.B. Du Bois book. And then the third one was like Montaigne. It was like, whoa, like you were just feeling like almost like whiplash, and like for that one, I think it would be really, really interesting to individually package the books that like you would review.
That was my first thought. I was like,
yeah, that's right.
Like a fortune cookie kind of,
That's right.
When you
and
said
then you plunge in, and then like at the end of the week you get the podcast that like explains it or something.
Yeah.
And then like for this one, I think we could sell that box set for like $1,000. And then we only have like 100 copies, and then like people can jump on a kind of a podcast or something like that, and you're going to be in like elite reading territory with like people that can afford like to buy $1,000 series on like wisdom or something. Okay.
Yeah. So when you said weekly, I was like, yes. And then you were like, I'll back it up quarterly. I was like, no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the weekly, because that's what they're used for. These are these smaller, digestible.
Right.
And I think that goes along with what you're trying to communicate as a brand.
Yeah. And it's again that thing where you were just talking about that currency. It's like you gotta spend it, you gotta read it, because the podcast is coming. Your community is moving along at this pace with you. So like there's something there.
But I like the thematic of, wisdom, because you could also play into that of like every week you're getting a little smarter,
especially
well, I mean, there was
just
like
the world out there.
There are like a handful of big mega themes. Like you could do love. Like that.
Yeah.
You could do a year of love or something like that. Okay, my last one is based on a question.
Okay.
If I was to ask you guys, pause and think about this question just for a second.
Okay.
Who in your imagination are like, like let's say 3 or 4 Americans who have never been elected to public office, who you think we would benefit from studying their lives today?
Okay. One of the first that comes to mind, although
any names, just like
Muhammad Ali came to mind, even though he's been well studied and covered.
Okay. Muhammad Ali.
Yeah, just like the time period, the sports, the politics, all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
Oprah.
Jackie Robinson falls in the same category, probably.
Who'd you say?
That's like Oprah.
Who do you think?
Oprah, yeah.
Oprah.
She's pretty well documented too, but yeah.
Jane Goodall. And I say that because
Jane Goodall.
I gave did a talk one time, or got my husband tickets to a Jane Goodall talk, and she just was very straight ahead, matter of fact, no PowerPoint, just this little tiny woman on a stage, and people were like bawling, myself included, by the end of it. And she was just like, "Here's my life," and talked about it, and people were crying at the end. So Jane Goodall.
It's amazing. Okay, so this is the only good marketing idea I think I've ever had. I would love to do a project where I pull like let's say a couple thousand people, ask them this question, and get them to surface names, and then take like a bunch of those names and then write mouse length biographies on those people, that don't focus so much on like the crucial details of like, this is when I was, the minute I was born, and this is where I went to grade school.
Like they're big arcs.
It's not Wikipedia.
Like why they're important.
Right.
Yeah. So like I could read this and I would be like, I would find out something really editorially interesting about Muhammad Ali, that I could like somehow apply in my life, and make it like a really user driven, like take the data from the users and like kind of represent them back to the audience.
I like that.
These lives.
Yeah, almost like an Untold Stories kind of series.
Right. Or they're like the big takeaways.
Yeah, so see, this is a cool company.
Yeah.
The problem is that, we're spending a lot of energy knocking this stuff out, and I'm just not smart enough getting it in front of the people who need to see it, to buy it, to put more energy into building it.
Right.
So let me ask you this, because here's what I'm thinking. Since we're being transparent, I think we're going to take that brainstorming chunk and like separate it out into an addendum for the podcast. So that'd be awesome. But we're
now workshopping.
Yeah. But so this is what I'm wondering, like, why haven't you just hired an agency or a consultant or something, or even like done like a brand session with,
or just attempted some of these things as your own test marketing?
Yeah. What's
I mean, we kind of have. We've tested stuff, and if I pitched to you, I'm good at pitching, I'm better at pitching than I am at like executing efficiently, So it's kind of the way. I hate to do this, guys, but I've got a 2:00, like a real.
My day job. No worries. I think you know what.
Meeting.
We got a great amount of stuff. Yeah. Well, David, thank you so much for joining us and for being real, because I was like,
well, I hope it was entertaining.
No, it was great.
And I think it'll be useful. Like, you're not alone. There are going to be lots of other folks like you out there who are going to be so glad that you shared it.
And you can find the podcast when we publish it on any of the podcast platforms. All your favorites will be everywhere. And then it will also be viewable, watchable in our digital digests that are going to be launching in the South Carolina markets first, but then coming to cities near you, everywhere.
Well, thanks, David. Can we check back in with you maybe like later in the year or something and see what's up?
Anytime.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you, David.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay. Fantastic. Talk to you guys later.
Bye.
Bye.